How can someone be a good boss to an employee with serious mental health issues? Be results oriented. If they are giving you the quality of work you need in the right time frame, don't micromanage how they are getting it done. You might ask them in what way they work better. For instance, they might work better in a quieter area, working from home, or with more flexible hours. You will, of course, also need to extend these courtesies to the other people you supervise. Just the fact that you're asking this question puts you light years ahead of most bosses. Being accommodating goes a long way and can inspire both harder work and loyalty if done properly. If someone is extremely depressed, your reaction can make all the difference. If you react with severity, tough love and tell them to get off their asses and get back to work, and their mood isn't an excuse, etc., you're just going to make their depression even worse in 99% of cases. It's depressing to think the world is harsh and brutal and concerned only with productivity and making a buck. You're just reinforcing that worldview by telling them to suck it up. But if you show them unexpected kindness, it might just raise their spirits and help them see that good people exist and it's not just some hopeless corporate dystopia out there. More than anything, be human. Realize they are human, not just a piece of equipment to push until it breaks. If anyone finds out, hit me up so I can pass the answer on to my ex-boss because he was truly a dick. But seriously, I'd suggest being open to discussion about any requirements or changes they may need to work and allowing them to feel comfortable within their role in the company enough that they can be open about their issues, as well as reassuring them that they won't be reprimanded if they have a bad day. My boss used to use my mental health against me if I wasn't behaving correctly. That is not letting him manipulate me and make me feel bad about myself so that I'd do what he wanted me to do. Just don't be a heartless prick. This lost a job not too long ago due to having anxiety attacks regularly following a return to work during pandemic. Was pulled aside, told to try and be more jovial/smile more. I'm wearing a fucking mask and asked if I needed any help/wanted to talk. When I discussed I was having issues and currently seeing a therapist and doctor, I was fired within the week after being blamed for their failing business. Told me I was being dramatic when I put issues such as managers bully staff, no safety measures and basically not wanting to work a 12-hour shift on a bar by myself. Point is up, be compassionate and understanding. Try your best to help them by offering time off, web links/phone lines, to call and take time to talk and listen, if they wish to. I have CPTSD and bipolar 2. I was open and upfront with my boss about everything. She was awesome about it and would check on me every once in a while, and if I started to get overwhelmed, retail, I knew I could go to her and she would find me something quiet to do, or if it was really bad she let me take off early with the promise I would talk to my doctors and keep her in the loop. I left that job 2 years ago and still keep in contact with her. She helped me a lot and I always felt guilty about it. She let me know I wasn't a burden for needing help and always encouraged me. I think that's the biggest thing. People like me feel really guilty and burdensome for needing extra help. We try not to ask for it because we don't want to be seen as lazy, weak or a problem. Letting someone like me know it's okay and that they're not a burden goes a long way. Indeed depends on the issue. I got issues too, and I don't think bosses know this, but it seems a general trend here. My work, my wife's work. It really doesn't matter where you/I work, or for what company. I couldn't care less. I just want a job that I like. Most of the time it is the direct hierarchy, or sometimes close colleagues, that is responsible for depression or burnouts. Turning the job into something that they'll hate, removing all motivation. In my case it's micromanaging. If you start doing that, my output is reduced to about 10%, the bare minimum. So in that case, see if the cause comes outside, angry partner, financial issues, or from within the workplace, you, or any of the direct colleagues. First, put all your expectations in writing. Not just for this one employee, but for everyone. Write down how every task should be completed. That will help the employee in question immensely, because there won't be any uncertainty. This includes specific instructions and timelines for how to call out of work. Next, hold everyone, even yourself, to those standards. This will help you know if you're subconsciously harder on one employee than others. It's easy to do, and it can really affect the work culture when people aren't treated the same. Finally, be fair but firm in consequences. Yes, having a mental illness is difficult, but the expectations are the expectations, and there are next steps if they are not met. You may feel like you can't let this person go because you're short-staffed, but ultimately it's easier to plan for X amount of reliable people, where X equals not quite enough people, that's to constantly be scrambling to cover for one unreliable person. Are they a good employee with poor mental health, or a bad employee with poor mental health? I once had a crew member on a feature film. Great employee, but his father died recently. Literally, it was just telling him good job, or every once in a while a bro hug, and you could see how much wind it put in his sails. On another instance, I had a crew member who would lie compulsively. He had slight Asperger's, which he said caused the lying. The first few times he apologized, and we moved on. But as it kept happening, eventually, firing him was the only option. Be sympathetic and supportive. But if it impacts your business, then they have to go. It's harsh. It sucks. But if business goes downhill, then more than just one employee will be negatively affected. Be compassionate, but still hold them accountable for projects that they own. Let them set the terms and boundaries for discussion, but make it clear that you are open to communication and genuinely want to help them. The biggest thing I can impress is take away the fear. The fear of losing their job, of being persecuted for their issues, of being embarrassed or stigmatized. Don't let them take advantage of the business, but let them know you are here for them, not against them. Just be understanding. If they need to take a sick day, make sure they know that it's okay. Allowing breaks is super important too. Don't make them feel like they need to keep working while having a panic attack. It's different for every person, but just being understanding and not faulting them for something out of their control goes a long way. Sit down and have a talk about how you can help them. I'm a former general manager, and I've found that the key to being a good boss is knowing your employees. I think when it comes to an employee's mental health, open communication is especially important. Talk with them, let them know you understand their situation, and try to make accommodations for them. That's my take on it. From personal experience, I tend to work better when I'm free to do what needs to be done in my own way, without being micromanaged. Set the expectations for the day or job, or whatever, and provide the resources needed to do it so there is less to worry about. There might be better ways to say this, but that's how I feel. Sometimes I just could not get out of bed to save my life. My boss evaluated me more on a value added than clock punching scale, and I worked really hard and was really innovative when I was manic. So on days when I couldn't get out of bed, I would let him know, and he would just hype up my last great success to the VPs until I was ready to start being innovative again. But basically he knew how to brag on me while I was down, so that I still had good buzz around my name even during times when I couldn't be in the office. I was in a supervisory position for a few years and had an employee tell me in a private conversation that they had a history of significant mental health issues. They were looping me in because they were concerned they might be slipping again. I basically operated with them like, tell me if you need anything, and tell me how I can best support you. When they needed to take a day, they got it. If they needed to talk, we talked. Their work never slipped, so it was never an issue we needed to explore or pursue together. I just hoped that I was an adequate support to them. Be understanding. I have PTSD and boss has mentored me and helped through a lot. Life is like a tree. Some people have better roots than you, but in time your roots will grow, and ultimately you'll develop into a beautiful oak. Well, I can flat out tell ya, as someone who is employed and does have mental health issues, my employer takes them seriously. I can't tell you how many times I broke down in the hours office and was taken seriously before I got help. Not everyone can though. Treat them like people and try to help them if they ask for it/need it. If they work their asses off and always produce quality, then that's great. I'm a social worker who works specifically with people who have schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. I think it could help if you can talk to someone around them to understand what could work, or if the person needs some strategies. And sometime, it's not the best time to have a job if the person is not stable. Do you know what is the diagnostic? And if the person sees a mental health specialist? Having been an employee who returned to work after a hospital stay in the mental health ward, I can say that treating us normally and friendly when we come back goes a long way. Your first instinct might be to treat them differently, but showing them that you trust their competence and also letting them know your assistance is there if they need it is best. I can say that returning to work is extremely anxiety inducing, so any normalcy or getting right back into the swing of things helps. Listen. If your employee claims to be burning out or is always tired, ask them if they need an adjustment in work hours. If they say that's not the issue, ask what it is. If they've been diagnosed with something worse than just burnout, make sure they are taken care of. If they need medication nearby in case of emergency, allow them to have it in a nearby secure location. If it means they need to take breaks more frequently because of their illness, make sure they get those required breaks. Employees are humans too, and some of us have special needs that need to be taken care of more frequently than others. Honestly, just be there for your employees and let them know if they are struggling they can come to you about. I'm not saying you need to be their therapist, but just knowing that you can go to your boss and have an open conversation and work out the best way you can support them means the world. My current boss doesn't even question me if I come to her and say that I have a doctor's appointment or I need to take a mental health day. I rarely take sick days, but if she knows I'm struggling and can't face talking to people, she will let me do all the admin work and let me get my head down and be quiet and just work. When I first joined, I was open about my depression and PTSD, and the first thing she asked was what do I need from her to help me, which was an eye-opener as I have never had that before. Straight up ask them, what can I do that would be the most helpful for you right now? Everyone's needs are different, and it's better to let them decide instead of assuming they'll need something. If you phrase it as if there's anything I can do, people will want to avoid inconveniencing you. By phrasing it like this, you're expressing that you're already committed to taking actions. If it's within your power, make sure your health insurance covers therapy. Inform them if you have an accommodations policy, usually handled by HR. This will include paperwork where the doctor will tell you what types of accommodations they need, then HR will determine if those can be provided in your line of work, and why or why not. This will inform you how to better help them, and help them understand the moments when you can't. You've gotten a lot of good answers so far, but I'll also suggest having them/you looking into supported employment. This links them with an occupational therapist and/or mental health professional that can help give them the skills, tools, and support needed to be an effective employee and creating the best possible situation for them and you. FWIW. Many people would be seriously lucky to have a boss like you. I slit my wrist earlier this year. My boss found out and immediately started my paperwork for leave. He contacted me while I was in the mental hospital, and when I got out we talked. He let me know he had my back and offered me housing since I couldn't live in my old place anymore. He also worked with me, schedule absences until I got stable, which took me a few weeks. He showed me he cared and showed me that I had someone if I was ever feeling like that again. Make clear distinctions between their performance and them. For example, this has nothing to do with you as a person, but needs to be done on every shift, and that isn't happening. Offer resources, especially if your company offers any kind of employee assistance program. Ask that they let you know if they are struggling, so that you can see if there are ways you can help. And if you're up for it, offer to listen. Well, that's hard. Because if the mental issues are serious enough, it may be more beneficial to them to be let go. Now, before there are pitchforks and torches, hear me out. Many people with serious mental issues really cannot hold down a job. Having a record of not being able to hold down a job is helpful in getting disability and other programs to help them out. You need to think about what is a reasonable and not a reasonable accommodation. How well can they do their job? Can they do their job? Are you doing their job? How much and what type of help do they need? Having a conversation with them would really help, and giving them reasonable expectations would help. Write them down for that person. Go over it with that person. If they can't meet expectations, then they just may be in the wrong spot, and that isn't going to help anyone. We talk about least restrictive environments in education for special education. The point is to make sure they are in a place where they can be successful. Can your employee be successful at their job with reasonable accommodations? If not, then the best thing to do would be to point that person in the right direction to get help. Do your best, because that's the type of person you are. You care, but also know when things are out of your hands. Play to the person's strengths as you should do with everyone. I understand not everyone has time to get to know the people under them, but pay attention to what other employees and customers are saying about them. If they are not good with people, stick them in the back or behind the scenes somehow. IDK, I don't have any mentally challenged employees, but if I did, it's what I would do. When I was barely getting by and struggling with the symptoms of my bipolar disorder, I finally broke down. I sat in my boss's office and told him that I was very sick and I was scared. He cried with me, offered to take me to the emergency department if I felt that I needed to go, and told me that all he wanted from me was for me to take care of myself. He provided me with information about our company's EAP and about the possibility of taking FMLA if I wanted to. He told me that my job right now was to get healthy again, and that everything else would be there for me when I was ready. He might have saved my life by doing that, because I did end up taking FMLA, and I went to the hospital for 5 days, and was also able to take the time I needed to take care of myself for the first time in a long time. That was in June, and I returned in August. My boss called to check in on me a few times, but what really meant the most to me was on my first morning back, when he told me that he admired me and thought I was one of the bravest people he knew. We work in mental health. My boss doesn't see clients anymore, but I do. He took care of my clients personally while I was gone, and several of them told me how helpful he was to them. He treated my clients like his own and made my transition back really easy. He was understanding and made me realize that he really does care about me as a person and not just as an employee. I will forever be one of his bigger fans for this. My father has an employee with severe depression. He just gives him the most space possible, and if he just shows up at 4 PM on a specific day, he knows that it wasn't possible to get out of bed earlier. He just trusts he does the best he can and tries to not get him work that needs him to be on time because of a customer, for example. So my advice would be to give him space if you trust that he won't exploit it outside of his disorder. A good boss would notice the mental health issues in the employee and help him work the issues. That's what we call a leader. When I was in management for a large railroad, I had to help another of people dealing with different things. I had to help a gay man grieve over his boyfriend leaving town. I had to help a war vet suppress his anger. I had to help employees grieve over the loss of a conductor who got ran over by his own train. A good boss helps people deal with their issues regardless of what those issues might be. Talk a lot if they are comfortable. I saw that you mentioned bipolar disorder, and I was a supervisor to a girl with bipolar, and we talked a lot. We became good friends, and I just listened to anything she had to say because it will give you a good idea of what they are feeling at the moment. Missed work due to anxiety was fairly common, but I let her know she's still valuable to the team. At times there was crying, and I just gave her a shoulder to cry on. There's a lot of stigma that comes with mood disorders, so just being a person they will feel safe around will do wonders, because sometimes missing work will cause even more negative emotions, causing them to feel like a liability rather than an asset. This is my personal experience supervising someone with a specific condition, so I hope it helps. When I was working, my boss was very understanding with my anxiety. He was willing to switch around the schedule a bit, so it was easier on me. Mornings are really hard for me. When I was having a really hard time, he let me take as much time off as I needed before coming back to work. Unfortunately, I ended up quitting entirely because it was clear that I was just getting worse. But he was very understanding about that decision as well. Said he would give me a good reference and such. He was very patient and understanding as he said his wife also struggled with anxiety, so he knew firsthand how hard it can be. He also had a long-term good working relationship with my dad, which probably helped. But he was a genuine good guy. So, being understanding, flexible if possible, patient, and appreciative. If they do good work, let them know that they are a valuable member of your team, even with their issues. Mental health sufferer here. Don't hold my abnormal days, slightly low X statements, and occasional lower performance than normal days against me. I promise I'm doing my goddamn best, especially if you're a great boss. I'll go to the ends of the earth with you. Just some days I'm just not in it, no matter what I try. Be understanding. So many capitalist jackasses out there who have a sudden hate for all imperfect employees. You shouldn't give excessive lenience to a point of jealousy or hostility in other cowhawkers, but being understanding is key. Having depression or anxiety or what have you isn't a reason to have an easier time at work or a harder one. Just understanding one's issues is a huge step in the right direction. I recommend asking for a letter from their psychologist/GP/psychiatrist that details some practical accommodations. If they have serious issues, they should be in contact with someone. Offer to provide them a document with task and environment details to take in for the discussion if needed. Perhaps also with some details of where they need to improve. This also hopefully gets them to talk through their needs with a professional, getting you clear practical tasks. It also provides documentation that may help either you or them in the future. That being said, I'm in Australia and I don't know if getting that help in other countries is possible or affordable for everyone.